They say strength rules and Gravehold keep. That power answers only to violence. That a blind girl scrubbing blood from stone floors is nothing. Invisible, worthless, already dead. They're wrong. When King Kaelin Draven's enemies strike from the shadows, it's the servant no one sees who saves his life. When betrayal comes wearing a beautiful face, it's the girl they mocked who stands between the kingdom and corruption. And when ancient power buried beneath the fortress awakens, it doesn't choose the strongest warrior. It chooses her. Stay until the end to see how the invisible became unstoppable. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from. The first thing Lyra remembered was screaming. Not her own, her mother's. High and raw, and ending too suddenly, like a candle snuffed between wet fingers. Then fire, the smell of it, thick, greasy smoke that tasted like burning hair, and something worse. Something that made her stomach twist even now, years later, when the cook left meat on the flame too long. She'd been 7 when Redwater Village died. Now she was 19 and still scrubbing other people's blood off stone. "Move faster, blind rat!" The guard's boot caught her hip, not hard enough to bruise, just enough to remind her where she stood. His Majesty's Council meets in an hour. This hall needs to shine. Lyra said nothing. She never did. Words drew attention, and attention in Gravehold Keep was like lightning. It found the highest point and burned it down. She kept her head low, her scarred hands working the brush in steady circles. The stone beneath her fingers was old, older than the kingdom itself. She could feel its texture, could map the entire fortress through touch and sound, and the way air moved through corridors. The servant's wing smelled like lye and exhaustion. The training yards carried the copper tang of fresh wounds. The king's tower, she'd only been there once, hauling laundry, that smelled like leather and steel and something sharp she couldn't name. Power, maybe. The kind that made the air feel heavier. Honestly, why does Matron even keep you? The guard shifted his weight. Chainmail clinked. You're slower than the others. Can't even see the damn dirt. Lyra's jaw tightened, but she kept scrubbing. She could see the dirt just fine, not with her eyes, but with her fingers, with the way the brush caught on dried blood versus plain grime. She knew this floor better than anyone. Knew which stones were cracked, which held hollow spaces underneath, which ones had been replaced after the last assassination attempt. The guard spat near her bucket and walked away. She exhaled slowly, forcing her shoulders to unknot. This was survival. Keep your head down. Work harder than everyone else. Never give them a reason to notice you, because the moment they did, girl. Lyra froze. That voice didn't belong to a guard. It was deeper, rougher, like gravel being dragged across iron. Authority lived in it, the kind that didn't need to be loud. She turned her head toward the sound, keeping her clouded eyes downcast. "My lord? You're the blind one." Not a question. Footsteps approached, measured, deliberate, heavy boots on stone. "The one who works the king's tower." "Sometimes, my lord, when Matron needs extra hands." A pause. She could feel him studying her, could sense the weight of his attention like heat from a forge. This close, she caught his scent. Leather, weapon oil, and something else. Something wild that made her pulse quicken for reasons she didn't understand. "You were there yesterday," he said, "when the southern delegates arrived." Lyra's hand stilled on the brush. Yesterday. The delegates with their perfumed coats and false smiles. She'd been hauling linens through the tower's back stairs when she'd heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Metal scraping stone where no metal should be. A breath held too long in an empty hallway. She'd drop the linens and run. Stupid. So stupid. Drawing attention was the last thing she should do, but her feet had moved before her mind could catch up, and she'd barreled around the corner just as the false delegate raised his blade. "I was clumsy," Lyra said carefully. "I apologize for disrupting the proceedings, my lord. It won't happen again." Another pause. Longer this time. "You tackled an armed assassin." His voice held something between disbelief and dark amusement. "Blind. Unarmed. You threw yourself at a man with a poisoned blade." "I tripped, my lord. I'm very clumsy." "You tripped. Into a man who was 10 feet away, behind a pillar, where no servant had any reason to be." Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was how it ended. They'd think she was a spy, a plant, Part of some larger conspiracy. They'd chain her in the dungeons or throw her off the walls or... Do you know who I am, girl? She swallowed. No, my lord. I'm the king's chief strategist, Garrett Thorne, and I've been watching you. The world tilted. You move through this keep like you can see, Garrett continued, like you've got a map drawn in your head. You were in the right place yesterday, not lucky, not clumsy. You knew something was wrong before anyone else did, and that interests me. His Majesty wants to meet you. The words hit like a fist to the chest. No. The word escaped before she could stop it. No, please. I'm no one. I just clean floors. I can't. You saved the king's life yesterday. Whether you meant to or not, that assassin was 3 steps from his target. You bought the guards time to respond. Garrett's tone shifted, something almost gentle entering it. King Kalen doesn't forget debts. I can't. Panic clawed up her throat. Sir, please. If I'm brought before the court, if people start asking questions... She couldn't finish. Couldn't explain that questions led to answers, and answers led to bloodlines, and bloodlines led to the same hooded figures who'd burned her village and cut down her mother in the street. It's not a request, Garrett said quietly. Be in the king's private study at sunset. Someone will fetch you. His footsteps retreated, leaving her alone with her racing heart and the cold certainty that everything was about to shatter. Mom. Sunset came too fast. Lyra had tried to run, packed her few belongings into a stolen sack, and headed for the servants' exit near the eastern wall. But Matron was waiting there, arms crossed, disappointment etched into every line of her weathered face. Running won't save you, child, Matron said. Whatever you're afraid of, it'll find you out there faster than it will in here. You don't understand. I understand that a blind girl who should have died in the streets somehow survived 12 years in Gravehold Keep. Matron's voice softened. I understand that you're smarter than you pretend to be. And I understand that the king doesn't summon servants unless he means to change their fate. What if I don't want my fate changed? Matron smiled, sad and knowing. Then you picked the wrong life to survive, didn't you? So now Lyra stood outside the king's tower, hands trembling, while a guard she didn't recognize led her upstairs she'd only climbed twice before. The air grew warmer as they ascended, richer. She could smell wine and parchment and something else, that same sharp, wild scent from earlier. Power, definitely power. The guard knocked once. The girl, Your Majesty. Send her in. That voice, Lyra's breath caught. It was different from Garrett's. Younger, but no less commanding. It didn't demand respect. It assumed it. The door opened. She was guided forward, heard it close behind her. Then, silence. She stood perfectly still, every muscle locked, fighting the urge to bolt like a rabbit. The room felt large, larger than any servant's space. Her ears picked up the crackle of a fire to her left, the rustle of papers to her right, the soft exhale of someone watching her from directly ahead. You can relax, the king said. I'm not going to hurt you. Lyra didn't relax. Couldn't. Her mother's last words echoed in her skull. Stay hidden. Stay small. If they find you, they'll kill you. What's your name? He asked. Lyra. Lyra Voss, Your Majesty. How long have you worked here, Lyra? 12 years, Your Majesty. And in 12 years, no one thought to mention we had a servant who moves like she has eyes in the back of her head? Her throat tightened. I'm just a cleaner, Your Majesty. I'm not... You knew that assassin was there before my guards did. Before I did. His chair creaked as he leaned forward. How? The truth hovered on her tongue. I heard his heartbeat change, smelled the poison on his blade, felt the shift in air pressure when he drew his weapon. But she couldn't say it. Couldn't explain that when her mother had stolen her sight, something else had awakened. Something that let her sense the world in ways no one else could. I don't know, Your Majesty. I just felt like something was wrong. Felt like something was wrong, he repeated slowly. Strong enough that you threw yourself at an armed man. I wasn't thinking, Your Majesty. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for saving my life. His voice dropped, something almost amused in it. That's not how this works. Footsteps. He was walking toward her. Every instinct screamed at her to back away, but she held her ground, hands clenched at her sides. He stopped close. Too close. She could feel the heat radiating from him, could sense the barely leashed strength in his frame. This was a man who'd built his throne on battlefields, who'd earned loyalty with blood and strategy. The nobles feared him, the soldiers worshipped him, and he was staring at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "Look at me," he said. "Your Majesty, I can't. I know you're blind. Look at me anyway." Slowly, reluctantly, she raised her head, turned her clouded eyes toward where she thought his face was. Silence stretched. She felt his breath hitch. "Your eyes," he said quietly. "They're not just blind. They're... What happened to you?" The question hung in the air like a blade. She could lie, should lie. But something in his tone, not pity, not disgust, just genuine curiosity, made the truth slip out before she could stop it. "My mother did it," Lyra whispered. "The night our village burned. She said it was the only way to hide me." "Hide you from what?" "I don't know." That part was true. Her mother had died before explaining. "I was 7. I just remember fire and screaming and her hands on my face, whispering words I didn't understand. When I woke up, I couldn't see, and she was gone." Another long pause. "And you ended up here," Kaelin said. "In the one place where weakness gets you killed." "I'm not weak." The words came out sharper than intended. She immediately regretted them, started to apologize. "No," the king said. "You're not." His tone had changed, thoughtful now, calculating. "Garrett tells me you know this keep better than most of the guards, that you can navigate it in total darkness, never get lost, never miss a step. Is that true?" Lyra hesitated. "I've worked here a long time, Your Majesty. I know the layout." "Show me." "What?" "There's a door behind you, leads to a side passage. Walk me through the route from here to the throne room." Her pulse spiked. "Your Majesty, You're not in trouble. I'm curious. Indulge me." This was a test. Had to be. But refusing a king's direct order wasn't an option, so she turned slowly, orienting herself by the fire's heat and the draft from under the door. Found the handle. Opened it. The passage beyond was narrow, unlit, perfect. She stepped through without hesitation. Behind her, she heard Kaelin follow, heard the soft surprise in his breath when she didn't slow down, didn't reach out to steady herself. She walked the corridor like she owned it. Left turn, 12 paces, down 3 stairs, right turn at the intersection where the air smelled like old iron and rust from the forge, 2 floors below. "Stop," Kaelin said suddenly. She stopped. "There's a sword leaning against the wall to your right. Don't touch it. Just tell me, how did you know it was there?" She hadn't known. But now that he mentioned it, "I can hear it," she said. "The way sound bounces off it. Echoes different than if the wall was bare." "And the stairs? How did you count them exactly?" "The wood creaks different depending on how worn it is. The 3rd one is newer, less worn. The sound changes." She heard him exhale, low and wondering. "Who taught you this?" "No one, I just learned." Another dozen paces. She led him through 2 more turns, down a servant's corridor that opened into the main hall. Stopped precisely at the threshold to the throne room. "We're here," she said. Kaelin moved past her, into the vast chamber. She heard his boots echo against marble. Then silence. "You didn't bump into a single thing," he said finally. "Didn't hesitate once. You moved like you could see every step." "I can," Lyra said quietly. "Just not with my eyes." When he spoke again, his voice was closer, right beside her. "Lyra Voss, how would you like to stop scrubbing floors?" Her heart stopped. "Your Majesty? I need someone who can sense danger before it strikes. Someone who sees what others miss. You proved yesterday that you're capable. I'm offering you a position." "A position?" she repeated numbly. "Attendant to the crown. You'd work in the tower. Stay close during council meetings, court proceedings, public events. Be my eyes where I have blind spots." He paused. "And before you refuse, know that I'm aware of the risk I'm taking. Putting a blind servant at the king's side? Half the court will call it madness. The other half will call it weakness. But I didn't build this kingdom by letting others dictate my choices." Lyra's mind raced. This was insane, impossible, everything she'd spent 12 years avoiding. But if she said no, she'd go back to the floors, back to invisibility. And eventually someone else would notice what she could do, someone who wouldn't offer a choice. Why? She whispered. Why me? Because you're not afraid to act when it matters, Kaelin said simply. And in Gravehold Keep, that's worth more than sight. She stood at the edge of something vast and terrifying, could feel it yawning beneath her like a chasm, jump or fall. Those were her options. Yes, she heard herself say, I'll do it. Good. Satisfaction entered his tone. Report to the tower at dawn. Garrett will show you your quarters. My quarters? She'd never had quarters, just a cot in the servants' barracks. You work for the crown now. Act like it. His hand settled briefly on her shoulder, warm, solid, grounding. And Lyra? Thank you. For yesterday. He left before she could respond, his footsteps fading into the grand hall. Lyra stood alone in the threshold, her new future crashing over her in waves. She'd wanted to stay invisible. Instead, the king had just dragged her into the light. Dawn came with consequences. Lyra's new quarters were a small room in the tower's upper level, modest by noble standards, a palace by hers. Actual walls. A door that closed. A bed with a mattress instead of straw. She'd stood in the doorway for 10 minutes, afraid to enter, certain it was some cruel joke. But Garrett had been patient. It's yours, he'd said. Get used to it fast. You've got a lot to learn. He wasn't kidding. The next week was a blur of information crammed into her skull like kindling into a forge. Garrett drilled her on court protocol, noble houses, who was allied with whom, which families held grudges going back generations. She learned that Lord Marcus Vire controlled the northern trade routes, that Lady Seraphine Vire, his daughter, was considered the most eligible match in the kingdom, that House Corvan and House Brennan were one insult away from civil war. She learned that Gravehold Keep was more than a fortress. It was a pressure cooker of ambition and violence, where alliances shifted like sand and one wrong move could end bloodlines. And through it all, the king watched. Kaelin didn't explain her presence, didn't justify it. He simply acted as though having a blind attendant at his side was the most natural thing in the world. When the council muttered, he ignored them. When Lady Seraphine arrived for her introductory visit, and her gaze lingered on Lyra with thinly veiled contempt, Kaelin changed the subject without missing a beat. He's protecting you, Garrett said one night, after another brutal lesson on heraldry. But that protection only goes so far. If the court turns against you hard enough, even he can't shield you completely. Then why bring me into this? Lyra asked, frustration bleeding through. Why not just let me stay invisible? Because invisible people don't save kings, Garrett's tone was matter-of-fact. And because Kaelin sees something in you, the rest of us are too stupid to notice. What? Potential. He stood gathering his papers. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you attend your first council session. And trust me, you'll need your wits about you. He wasn't wrong. The council chamber was a cathedral of hostility. Lyra could feel it the moment she entered. Tension thick enough to choke on, eyes tracking her every move. She kept close to Kaelin's side, hands folded, head down, trying to project harmlessness. It didn't work. Your Majesty. Lord Marcus Vire's voice was silk over steel. Forgive my confusion, but is that a servant at your right hand? Former servant, Kaelin said calmly. Lyra now serves as my personal attendant. Murmurs rippled through the room. Lyra didn't need sight to feel the disgust rolling off the assembled nobles. A blind attendant, Lady Seraphine Vire said, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. How progressive. Though one wonders what duties she could possibly fulfill. The same duties as anyone else, Kaelin replied. Observation, analysis, protection. Laughter. Actual laughter. Protection. Lord Brennan sounded incredulous. Your Majesty, with all respect, she cannot even see threats, let alone counter them. She saw the assassin last week before any of you did. Silence dropped like a guillotine. That was luck, Marcus Vere said carefully. Surely you don't mean to suggest— I mean to suggest, Kaelin interrupted, his tone hardening, that competence comes in forms you're too narrow-minded to recognize. This council is dismissed. We'll reconvene when you've remembered how to address your king with proper respect. Chaos. Nobles scrambling to stand, to bow, to salvage dignity. Lyra felt their hatred like heat from coals. As they filed out, Seraphine passed close enough that her perfume, something floral and cloying, made Lyra's nose itch. "Enjoy your moment, blind girl," Seraphine whispered. "It won't last." Then she was gone, leaving only the ghost of her threat hanging in the air. Kaylin's hand found Lyra's elbow. "Come. We're leaving before someone does something stupid." She followed, heart hammering. "They hate me. They fear you. There's a difference." "Why would they fear me?" "Because you have my attention," Kaylin said quietly. "And in this court, attention is currency." They climbed the tower stairs in silence. At the top, Kaylin paused. "I meant what I said. You saved my life, but more than that, you proved you can see what others miss. That's a rare gift, Lyra. Use it wisely." She wanted to tell him it wasn't a gift. It was a curse bought with her mother's life and sealed in blood. But the words wouldn't come. "Get some rest," Kaylin said. "Tomorrow will be harder." He was right. Tomorrow, Lady Seraphine Vire began her true campaign, and Lyra's new life turned into a waking nightmare. Seraphine's attacks were surgical. She didn't confront Lyra directly. That would have been beneath her. Instead, she whispered poison into every ear that would listen. How inappropriate it was for the king to elevate a blind servant, how dangerous it made him look, how weak. She smiled at Lyra in public and spread rumors in private, rumors that grew teeth. She must be his mistress. Why else would he keep her so close? She's a spy, planted by foreign enemies. She's cursed. That's why she's blind. Divine punishment for dark magic. Within days, the servants who'd once ignored Lyra now avoided her entirely. Guards sneered when she passed. Nobles complained loudly about inappropriate presences during state functions. And through it all, Seraphine played the perfect concerned noblewoman. Approaching Kaylin with furrowed brow, asking if he'd considered the implications of his choices, suggesting alternative attendants from proper families, offering herself subtly as a better option for Queen than this unfortunate situation. Lyra heard it all, every whispered conversation, every calculated move. Her enhanced senses picked up Seraphine's heartbeat, steady, controlled, never panicked. This wasn't emotion, it was strategy, and it was working. "You need to send her away," Garrett said bluntly one evening. He'd found Lyra in her quarters, staring sightlessly at the wall. "Seraphine is turning the entire court against you. If this continues—" "I'm not running," Lyra said. "This isn't running, it's survival. There's a difference." "Is there?" She turned toward him. "I spent 12 years hiding, surviving. I'm tired of it, Garrett. If she wants me gone, she'll have to do better than rumors." Garrett was quiet for a long moment, then, "You sound like him." "Who?" "Kaylin, stubborn, reckless, and too proud to back down even when you should." He sighed. "Fine. But watch your back. Seraphine doesn't play fair." He left. Lyra sat alone in the darkness, her mother's voice echoing, "Stay hidden, stay small." But small hadn't saved her village. Small hadn't stopped the screaming. Maybe it was time to stop being small. The turning point came 3 weeks later. Kaylin had called a formal banquet to celebrate the alliance with House Corvan, a delicate political dance meant to secure the northern borders. Every major house attended, including the Vires. Lyra stood near the king's chair, silent and still, feeling the weight of hostile stares like physical blows. The air was thick with wine and tension and something else, something wrong. She frowned, tilting her head. There, a scent that didn't belong, bitter, like crushed seeds, mixed with— Her blood went cold. Poison. The same poison the assassin had used 3 weeks ago. Her pulse spiked. She turned her head slowly, tracking the scent. It was coming from the wine, specifically the king's cup, freshly poured by a servant, one she didn't recognize, moving too quickly, already retreating toward the kitchens. Lyra didn't think. She grabbed Kaylin's wrist just as he reached for the cup. "Don't," she whispered urgently. "Don't drink that." Every conversation in the hall stopped. Kaylin froze. "Lyra?" "The wine. It's poisoned." Gasps, shock. Then laughter, harsh and disbelieving. "This is absurd," Marcus Vire declared. "Your Majesty, this girl is clearly delusional. She cannot possibly—" "Bring that servant back," Kalen ordered, his voice cutting through the noise. "Now!" Guards moved, but the servant was already gone, vanished into the warren of passages below. "Test the wine," Kalen said. A court physician hurried forward, produced a silver needle, dipped it in the cup. The metal turned black instantly. Silence. Then chaos. Someone just tried to kill the king. Who was that servant? How did the blind girl know? Seraphine's voice rose above the din, sweet and concerned. "Your Majesty, surely this is another lucky coincidence. We cannot allow paranoia to—" "Shut up." Kalen's tone could have frozen steel. He stood, still gripping Lyra's wrist, his attention locked on her. "How did you know?" "I smelled it," Lyra said quietly. "The poison. It's the same one from before." "You can smell poison." "I can smell everything." The truth spilled out. "I hear heartbeats, sense movement, feel changes in air pressure. When my mother took my sight, something else woke up. I don't understand it, but I know it's real." The hall was deathly silent. Kalen's grip tightened, not painful, grounding. "You've been sensing threats this entire time." "Yes." "And you didn't tell me because—" "Because I didn't want anyone to know." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted to survive. But you keep pulling me into the center of things, and I can't hide anymore. And I'm terrified that if people find out what I can do, they'll ask questions I can't answer." She felt the weight of 100 eyes, felt the shift in the room's energy. Some disbelieving, some afraid, some calculating. "Your Majesty," Seraphine said carefully, "this raises serious concerns. If the girl has been hiding unnatural abilities—" "Unnatural?" Kalen's voice was dangerously soft. "She just saved my life. Again. That makes her the most valuable person in this room." He released Lyra's wrist and addressed the hall. "From this moment forward, Lyra Voss is under my direct protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. Is that clear?" Murmurs, nods. No one dared argue. But Lyra felt it, the invisible target painted on her back growing larger, brighter. Seraphine's heartbeat hadn't changed at all. Still steady, still controlled, still planning. As the banquet dissolved into nervous conversation and investigation, Kalen pulled Lyra aside. "We need to talk," he said, "privately." They climbed to his study. Once inside, he paced, energy crackling off him like static. "Tell me everything," he said. "No more secrets." So she did. Told him about Redwater Village, about her mother's final act, about waking up blind and alone. Told him about learning to navigate through sound and scent, about the way her senses had sharpened over the years until she could track people by heartbeat, identify them by smell, feel danger like pressure against her skin. Kalen listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Your mother was protecting you," he said finally. "From whoever destroyed your village. She sealed something inside you. I don't know what, though. She died before—" "It doesn't matter." He turned to face her. "What matters is that you're here now, and you're not running anymore." Lyra's throat tightened. "What if I should be? Then we run together." He crossed to her, his presence solid and certain. "Lyra, I meant what I said. You're under my protection, not because you saved my life, because you're—" He paused, searching for words. "Because you're braver than half my army, and I'll be damned if I let vipers like Seraphine drive you out." Something in her chest cracked open. For the first time in 12 years, she felt like maybe she wasn't alone. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." His tone turned grim. Seraphine just showed her hand. She's been behind these attempts, and now that you've exposed her, she'll escalate. "What do we do?" "We prepare," Kalen said, "and we watch, because when she makes her real move—" He didn't finish, didn't need to. They both knew. The storm was coming, and when it hit, only one of them would survive. The banquet's aftermath lingered like smoke, acrid, invasive, impossible to wash out. Lyra spent the next morning in her quarters, listening to boots march past her door. Investigations had begun. Guards interrogated servants. The kitchens were torn apart looking for accomplices. But the poisoner had vanished like water through stone, leaving nothing behind except questions and the metallic taste of fear in everyone's mouth. She sat on the edge of her bed, fingers tracing the rough weave of her blanket. Her enhanced senses were screaming. Too many heartbeats in the tower, too many whispered conversations bleeding through walls. The entire keep was wound tight as a crossbow, one wrong move from snapping. A knock interrupted her thoughts. "It's Garrett." She opened the door. He stepped inside, closed it firmly behind him. "You need to hear this," he said without preamble. "The court's splitting. Half think you're a hero. The other half think you're a witch. Which half is larger?" "The second." His tone was grim. "Marcus Vire is calling for an investigation into your unnatural abilities. He's convinced others that you represent a threat to the kingdom's stability." "Of course he is." Lyra's jaw tightened. "And let me guess, his daughter's leading the charge." "Seraphine's more subtle than that. She's playing the concerned noble, worrying aloud about how such powers might be used for harm, how no one truly knows where your loyalties lie." Garrett paused. "She's suggesting that maybe the poison was meant to fail, that you orchestrated both attempts to gain the king's trust." The words hit like cold water. "That's insane. That's strategy, and it's working. 3 council members have already requested a formal inquiry. If Kalen doesn't address this soon, they'll force his hand." Lyra stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the training yard sprawled below. Soldiers drilling, weapons clashing, the brutal rhythm of Gravehold's daily violence. This was a kingdom built on strength, on certainty. She was neither. "What does Kalen want me to do?" "Attend tonight's emergency council session. Stand your ground. Show them you're not afraid." I'm afraid." "Then don't show it." Garrett's voice softened. "Lyra, listen. I've served this kingdom for 15 years. I've seen Kalen survive assassination attempts, coup plots, border wars that should have ended his reign before it started. You know what he does? He faces the threat directly. No hiding, no apologies. That's how you survive here. You meet them eye to eye and dare them to blink first." "I can't meet them eye to eye," she said bitterly. "That's the problem." You know what I mean." She did, but knowing and doing were oceans apart. Garrett left her with a warning. "They'll try to provoke you, make you lose control. Don't give them the satisfaction." When he was gone, Lyra sat in silence, counting her own heartbeats until they slowed, until the fear crystallized into something sharper. Anger. She'd spent 12 years making herself small, invisible. And where had it gotten her? Scrubbing other people's blood off floors, sleeping in straw, flinching at every raised voice. Maybe Garrett was right. Maybe it was time to stop apologizing for existing. She stood, straightened her shoulders, and began preparing for war. The emergency council session convened at dusk in the Great Hall, the same space where the banquet had dissolved into chaos. Lyra entered beside Kalen, her chin raised, refusing to show the tremor in her hands. The hall was packed, not just council members, but nobles from every major house, guards lining the walls, even servants pressed into corners to witness the spectacle. The air crackled with anticipation. This wasn't governance. It was theater. Kalen took his seat at the head of the long table. Lyra stood behind him, hands folded, feeling the weight of 100 hostile stares. Marcus Vire rose first, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of aristocratic bearing that came from centuries of inherited power. His voice carried across the hall like a blade drawn from its sheath. "Your Majesty, we gather tonight under extraordinary circumstances. 2 attempts on your life, a servant with unexplained abilities, suspicions and fears spreading through the court like plague." He paused for effect. "We must address the source of this instability before it destroys us from within." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. "The source?" Kalen's tone was deceptively calm. "You mean the people trying to kill me? Or the woman who stopped them twice?" "We mean," Seraphine said, rising smoothly, "the woman whose abilities cannot be explained, who appeared from nowhere 12 years ago, whose very presence seems to attract danger." She turned to face the crowd, her expression perfectly calibrated, concerned, reluctant, pained. "Your Majesty, No one questions your judgment under normal circumstances. But these are not normal circumstances. We're asking for transparency. Where did Lyra Voss come from? What is she? And why does she possess abilities that defy natural law? The hall erupted, voices overlapping, some demanding answers, others defending Kalen's right to choose his own attendants. The chaos built like a wave. Kalen let it crest. Then he stood. Silence fell instantly. You want transparency? His voice cut through the noise like winter wind. Fine. Lyra, step forward. Her heart lurched. This wasn't the plan. Garrett had said, stay quiet, stay behind the king, let him handle the politics. But Kalen's tone brooked no argument. She stepped around the table, faced the assembly alone. Tell them, Kalen said, everything you told me. No secrets. Lyra's mouth went dry. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to run, to protect the last shreds of her privacy. But she'd made a choice. No more hiding. She spoke. My name is Lyra Voss. I was born in Redwater Village near the northern frontier. When I was 7, my village was attacked. Everyone died. My father, my neighbors, everyone except my mother and me. We tried to escape, but they found us. Men in black cloaks who hunted us like animals. My mother... Her voice caught. She forced it steady. My mother performed some kind of ritual. I don't know what it was. I just remember her hands on my face, whispering words I didn't understand, and then fire, burning through my eyes. When I woke up, I was blind, and she was dead. The hall was utterly silent. I ended up in Gravehold because a traitor found me half dead in the woods. He dumped me at the servants' gate and left. I survived by learning to see without eyes. I can hear things you can't, smell things you can't, feel things you can't. I don't know why. I don't know if it's magic or something else, but I know it's real, and I know it's kept me alive. She turned her clouded eyes toward where she sensed Seraphine standing. As for attracting danger, I didn't bring assassins to this keep. Someone else did. Someone who wants the king dead and is using me as a convenient scapegoat. Bold accusations, Marcus said coldly. Do you have proof? Do you? Lyra shot back. You're accusing me based on suspicion. Where's your evidence? The evidence, Seraphine said softly, is that 2 poisoning attempts occurred after you were elevated to a position of trust. The pattern is clear. The pattern, Lyra said, is that someone wants me discredited, and you're helping them do it. Gasps. Seraphine's expression flickered, just for an instant before smoothing back into injured innocence. How dare you suggest? I'm not suggesting anything, Lyra's voice hardened. I'm stating facts. You've been undermining me since I arrived, spreading rumors, turning the court against me, and now you're using this crisis to finish what you started. That's enough, Marcus snapped. Your Majesty, this girl is clearly unfit for... She's right. Every head turned. Kalen stood beside Lyra now, his presence solid and immovable. Seraphine has been working to isolate Lyra since day 1. I've watched it happen. Subtle, calculated, effective. The question isn't whether Lyra's dangerous, it's why Seraphine wants you all to believe she is. Seraphine's mask cracked further. Her voice took on an edge. Your Majesty, I have done nothing but serve this kingdom loyally. Have you? Kalen's gaze locked on her. Then explain why the first poisoning attempt occurred 3 days after you arrived at court. Explain why both assassins vanished without a trace, as if someone with resources was protecting them. Explain why you're so invested in removing the one person who can sense threats before they strike. The hall held its breath. Seraphine recovered quickly, her smile returning. Coincidence, Your Majesty? Tragic timing. But if you're determined to see conspiracy where there is none, perhaps we should investigate everyone who's been present during these events. Her eyes glinted. Including the blind girl whose past is conveniently shrouded in mystery. It was a masterful deflection. Lyra felt the room's energy shift, doubt creeping back in. Then investigate, Kalen said flatly, but do it fairly. Send scholars to research Redwater Village. Verify Lyra's story. And while you're at it, investigate House Vyer's recent financial transactions. I'm curious where all that gold's been flowing. Marcus went rigid. That is an outrageous. It's a king's prerogative. Kalen's tone brooked no argument. This council is adjourned until investigations are complete. Anyone who attempts to harm Lyra in the interim will be treated as an enemy of the crown. Dismissed. Chaos erupted again, but Kalen was already moving, his hand on Lyra's elbow, guiding her toward the side exit. They climbed the tower stairs in tense silence, guards flanking them. Only when they reached his study and the door was barred did Kalen speak. "You did well." Lyra's legs nearly gave out. She leaned against the wall, adrenaline draining away and leaving exhaustion in its wake. "I accused a major noble of conspiracy. That was stupid. That was necessary. Seraphine's been operating in shadows. You dragged her into the light. And now she'll come after me harder." "Yes." He didn't sugarcoat it, which is why you're not leaving this tower without an armed escort, and why we need to move faster. Move faster on what? Kalen crossed to his desk, pulled out a map. It showed the kingdom's territories, trade routes, political boundaries. He tapped a spot near the northern border. Redwater Village, or what's left of it. If your mother performed a ritual, there might be records, evidence, something that explains what you are. "The village burned," Lyra said. "There's nothing left." "Maybe, but I'm sending Garrett with a team to search anyway. If we can prove your story, it undermines Seraphine's accusations. And if you can't prove it," Kalen met her clouded gaze, "then we prove she's lying instead." A knock interrupted them. Garrett entered, his face grim. "We have a problem. Lord Brennan just declared neutrality. He's pulling his support from the crown until the Lyra situation is resolved." "Brennan's an opportunist," Kalen said. "He'll come back when—" "It's not just him. Lady Corvin sent word she's reconsidering the alliance. 3 minor houses have requested permission to return to their territories." Garrett's jaw tightened. "Seraphine's turning this into a referendum on your leadership. If you stand with Lyra, you stand against the court. That's the message she's spreading." The room fell silent. Lyra felt something crack inside her chest. "I'll leave." Both men turned to stare. "I'll leave," she repeated. "Go back to the servants' quarters. Disappear. You can tell them I was dismissed pending investigation. That buys you time to—" "No." Kalen's voice was absolute. "That's exactly what she wants. The moment you step down, she wins. And then she moves on to her next target, probably me. But if keeping me here destroys your throne, then the throne wasn't worth keeping." He crossed to her, his presence overwhelming in the small space. "Lyra, listen to me. I didn't bring you into this fight to abandon you when it got difficult. You stay. We fight. Together." "He's right," Garrett said reluctantly. "Backing down now would make you both look weak. Gravehold respects strength, not compromise." Lyra wanted to argue, wanted to point out that she'd been nothing but a liability since stepping into the light. But the determination in Kalen's voice stopped her. "Fine," she whispered. "We fight." "Good." Kalen returned to the map. "Garrett, take your fastest riders to Redwater. I need answers in 3 days." "That's barely enough time to—" 3 days. After that, Seraphine will force another council session, and I need ammunition." He glanced at Lyra. "You'll stay in the tower, train with the guards, learn to defend yourself properly. I can't see to fight. You can sense threats better than anyone here. We'll work with that." He softened slightly. "You're not helpless, Lyra. Stop acting like you are." The words stung because they were true. Garrett left to organize the expedition. Kalen walked Lyra to her quarters, posted guards outside her door. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow we start building your legend instead of letting Seraphine write it for you." Alone in her room, Lyra sat in darkness, counting the guards' heartbeats through the wall. 3 men. Alert. Nervous. They were afraid of her. Good. Maybe it was time to give them something to really fear. Awesome. Training began at dawn. Lyra stood in the private courtyard behind the tower, surrounded by 6 of Kalen's personal guard. The captain, a scarred veteran named Roderick, circled her slowly. "His Majesty says you can sense movement," Roderick said. "Prove it." Without warning, he lunged. Lyra twisted aside, feeling the displacement of air, hearing the scrape of his boot on stone. His fist passed inches from her head. Good. Roderick's approval was grudging. Again, faster. 3 more guards attacked in sequence. Lyra dodged, ducked, rolled. Her body moved on instinct, guided by the symphony of sound and scent and pressure, changes her senses tracked. She wasn't fast enough, took a glancing blow to the shoulder, another to her hip, but she didn't freeze, didn't panic. Enough, Roderick called a halt. You've got potential, but dodging isn't enough. You need to fight back. I can't see to aim. You don't need to see. You need to predict. He moved behind her, his voice close to her ear. Listen. Where am I? She focused, heard his breathing, slow, controlled, felt the heat radiating from his body, smelled the leather oil on his armor. 2 steps behind me, slightly left. Strike. She hesitated. Strike, or this training is pointless. Lyra spun, her elbow driving backward, connected with solid muscle. Roderick grunted. Better, do it again. Faster, harder. Gravehold doesn't reward hesitation. They drilled for hours. By midday, Lyra's arms were shaking, her muscles screaming, but she'd landed hits, real hits, enough that Roderick nodded approval. You're not a warrior, he said. But you're not prey either. Keep training. In a month, you might actually survive a real fight. As the guards dispersed, Kalen appeared. He'd been watching from the tower window. How do you feel? Like I've been beaten with rocks. Lyra flexed her sore fingers. But better, stronger. Good, because tonight you're attending the feast in the Great Hall. Her stomach dropped. Why? Because hiding makes you look guilty. You need to be seen. Need to show the court you're not afraid. I am afraid. Then pretend you're not. He smiled sharp and fierce. Welcome to politics. The feast that night was smaller than the banquet. Just the inner court, maybe 40 nobles. But the tension was worse. Lyra felt it the moment she entered, Kalen at her side. Every conversation stopped. Every eye tracked her movement. Seraphine sat at a table near the front, her gown shimmering like moonlight on water. She smiled when she saw Lyra. A predator's smile. Your Majesty, Seraphine said as they passed. How bold of you to bring your attendant. I hope tonight's wine is to your liking. The jab was subtle, enough to draw nervous laughter from nearby nobles without being overtly hostile. Kalen ignored her. They took their seats at the high table. Servants brought food, roasted meats, fresh bread, wine that Lyra refused to touch. Around them, conversations resumed, stilted and false. She caught fragments. Unnatural, that's what she is. The king's judgment, compromised. Vyer's moving pieces, heard their courting House Brennan. And underneath it all, Seraphine's voice, honey-sweet, weaving doubt into every exchange. Lyra forced herself to eat. Forced herself to sit straight, chin raised, projecting confidence she didn't feel. Halfway through the meal, a servant approached the high table. Young, nervous, carrying a sealed message. He bowed to Kalen. For you, Your Majesty, from the Northern Expedition. Kalen broke the seal, read quickly. His expression darkened. What is it? Lyra asked quietly. Garrett found Redwater Village. His voice was grim. Or what's left of it. There's something there. Something he thinks we need to see. Before Lyra could respond, Seraphine rose from her seat. The hall quieted. Your Majesty, if I may. She didn't wait for permission. I've spent the day speaking with various houses. There's a growing consensus that this court needs, clarity regarding recent events. Clarity, Kalen repeated flatly. Regarding your attendant, her claims, her abilities. Seraphine's gaze swept the room. Many of us feel that words alone are insufficient. We need proof of her loyalty, proof that she serves the crown and not some hidden agenda. What kind of proof? Kalen's tone could have cut glass. A test. Seraphine smiled. Something simple, public, that demonstrates her abilities are genuine and not fabricated. The hall erupted in murmurs, some supportive, some skeptical, all riveted. This is absurd, Kalen said. Is it? Marcus Vyer stood now, adding his weight to his daughter's proposal. Your Majesty, you've vouched for this girl's abilities. Surely demonstrating them publicly would silence all doubts. It was a trap. Lyra could feel it closing around her like iron jaws. If she refused, they'd call her a fraud. If she agreed and failed, they'd have their proof she was useless. And if she succeeded, Seraphine would find another way to destroy her. But Kaelin was already cornered. The court was watching, waiting. If he refused on Lyra's behalf, it would look like he doubted her too. "What do you propose?" Kaelin asked coldly. Seraphine's smile widened. "A hunt. Tomorrow at dawn. We'll release a target into the forest, someone Lyra's never met. She'll track them using only her enhanced senses. If she succeeds, we acknowledge her abilities. If she fails," she shrugged delicately, "then perhaps we reconsider her position." "And if I refuse," Lyra said, "then you confirm what many already suspect, that your abilities are exaggerated, that the king's trust is misplaced." Seraphine's eyes glittered. "The choice is yours." Lyra felt every gaze in the hall boring into her, felt the weight of their judgment, their doubt, their hunger to see her fail. She thought of her mother's sacrifice, of 12 years spent invisible, of Kaelin risking his throne to protect her. "Fine," she heard herself say. "I'll do it." Kaelin turned to her sharply. "Lyra!" "I'll do it," she repeated louder. "Tomorrow at dawn, I'll prove I'm exactly what I claim to be." Seraphine's smile was triumphant. "Excellent. Then it's settled." The feast dissolved into excited chatter. Nobles placing bets, discussing strategy, already treating it like entertainment. Kaelin pulled Lyra aside, his expression thunderous. "That was reckless. That was necessary. You said it yourself. I need to be seen, to prove myself. Not like this. Not on her terms." He lowered his voice. "She's setting you up to fail. The forest is vast. One person could hide for days. And if you don't find them quickly, the court will—" "I'll find them." Lyra's jaw set. "I've been tracking people through this keep for 12 years. Trees won't change that. The keep is controlled space. The forest is chaos. Then I'll learn to navigate chaos." She touched his arm briefly. "Trust me, I can do this." Kaelin searched her clouded eyes. Whatever he saw there made him exhale roughly. "Fine, but I'm sending Roderick with you, as an escort. That defeats the purpose. They'll say he helped. He'll stay back, just close enough to intervene if things go wrong." His tone left no room for argument. "I'm not risking you getting killed to satisfy Seraphine's games." Lyra wanted to argue, but the steel in his voice told her she'd already pushed as far as she could. "All right," she said quietly. "Roderick comes." That night, she didn't sleep. Lay in her quarters listening to the keep settle, counting heartbeats, tracking movements, preparing. Just before dawn, Roderick knocked on her door. "Time to go," he said. "His Majesty wants to see you first." She followed him to Kaelin's study. Inside, Kaelin stood by the window, watching the forest beyond the walls turn gray with pre-dawn light. "Garrett's message said there's a structure still standing at Redwater," he said without turning. "A temple, half burned but intact enough to explore. He found markings on the walls, symbols he doesn't recognize, and something else." "What?" "Blood, fresh blood. Someone's been using that temple recently." Lyra's skin went cold. "The same people who destroyed the village?" "Maybe. Or someone following their trail." He finally turned to face her. "Lyra, if you succeed today, when you succeed, we're going to that temple, together. Whatever your mother sealed inside you, whatever these people are hunting, we're going to find answers. And if we don't like the answers, then we deal with them anyway." He crossed to her, his hand settling on her shoulder. "You're not facing this alone. Not anymore." The words settled into her chest like stones, heavy, grounding. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." His grip tightened briefly. "Go prove them wrong. Show Seraphine exactly who she's dealing with." Lyra nodded, turned to leave. At the door she paused. "Kaelin?" "Yes?" "When this is over, when we find out what I really am, will you still stand with me?" Silence stretched. Then, "Always." The word followed her down the stairs, out into the courtyard where nobles had already gathered, into the forest where Seraphine's trap waited. The target, a young runner from House Corvan, was released into the trees at dawn, given a 10-minute head start. Then Lyra followed, Roderick trailing 30 paces behind. The forest swallowed her whole. Immediately, the controlled space of the keep vanished. Trees confused echoes. Wind carried 1,000 scents. Animals moved through underbrush, their heartbeats mixing with the runners. Lyra stopped, breathed, forced her panic down. Focus. She tilted her head, filtering sounds. There. Rapid breathing, northeast. Running footsteps. The runner was moving fast, trying to put distance between them. Good. Let him run. Running meant noise. She moved. Through the trees, over roots, ducking branches she sensed by the way sound reflected off them. Her enhanced senses painted the forest in layers, temperature gradients, air currents, the subtle pressure of living things disturbing space. The runner's heartbeat grew louder, closer. She picked up speed. Behind her, Roderick kept pace, his presence a steady anchor. The nobles followed further back, their chatter embedding a distant buzz. 15 minutes in, she found the runner's first trick. He doubled back, tried to confuse his trail by circling a rock formation. Clever, but useless. Lyra tracked him through scent now, the unique combination of sweat and fear and the oil he'd used on his boots. She adjusted course, cutting through a ravine that put her ahead of his path. Waited. When he came crashing through the undergrowth, she stepped out directly in front of him. He yelped, skidding to a halt. "Found you," Lyra said quietly. The nobles emerged from the trees, their shock palpable. Seraphine's expression was cold fury barely masked by polite surprise. "Impressive," Marcus Vire said grudgingly. 20 minutes. That's quite fast." "Luck," Seraphine said immediately. "The forest is small. She simply happened to—" "I can do it again," Lyra interrupted. "With a longer head start, a bigger forest, whatever you want." Silence. Seraphine's mask cracked further. "That won't be necessary." "No?" Lyra took a step forward. "Because it sounds like you don't believe what just happened. It sounds like you'll keep inventing reasons to doubt me, no matter what I prove." "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Succeed? Survive?" Lyra's voice rose. "I've done everything you've asked, answered your questions, passed your test, and you still want me gone. So let's stop pretending this is about my abilities. This is about you wanting the king's attention, and I'm in your way." Gasps rippled through the assembled nobles. Seraphine went very still. When she spoke, her voice was silk over razors. "You forget yourself, servant. You may have impressed His Majesty, but you are still nothing. A blind girl playing at importance. And when you inevitably fail, when your luck runs out and your tricks are exposed, I'll be there to watch you fall." "Then watch closely," Lyra said. "Because I'm not falling. Not for you. Not for anyone." The two women stood facing each other, the air between them crackling with undisguised hostility. Kaelin stepped between them. "This exhibition is over. Lyra has proven her abilities. The matter is settled." "For now," Seraphine said softly. Then she smiled. "But the real test is coming, isn't it? When you take her to Redwater, when you go digging into secrets that were buried for good reason. That's when we'll see what she truly is." Lyra's blood turned to ice. "How do you know about—" "I know everything that happens in this kingdom." Seraphine's eyes glittered. "And I know that whatever you find in that temple will destroy you both. Because some doors, once opened, can never be closed again." She turned and walked away, her father and supporters following. Lyra stood frozen, her mother's dying scream echoing in her memory. Kaelin's hand found hers, squeezed once. "We leave for Redwater at dawn," he said quietly. "Whatever she knows, whatever's waiting there, we face it together." Lyra nodded numbly, but as they walked back to the keep, she couldn't shake the certainty settling into her bones. Seraphine wasn't bluffing. She knew something terrible, and in 3 days, Lyra would find out exactly what her mother had died to hide. The journey north took 2 days of hard riding. Lyra had never been on a horse before, another skill she'd never needed in 12 years of scrubbing floors. Now she clung to the saddle while her thighs screamed and her spine felt like it was being hammered into pieces. Kaelin rode beside her, patient when she faltered, offering water when her lips cracked from wind. Garrett led the expedition, 20 soldiers, enough to handle bandits but small enough to move fast. Roderick brought up the rear, his scarred face unreadable. They avoided main roads, stuck to hunting trails and dried riverbeds where trees grew thick enough to hide their passage. Seraphine's threat hung over them like smoke. Whatever she knew about Redwater, she'd made it clear she was watching, waiting for them to stumble. "Tell me about your mother," Kaylin said on the second morning as they watered the horses near a stream. Lyra dipped her hands in the cold water, letting it numb her blistered palms. "There's not much to tell. She was a healer, grew herbs, delivered babies, set broken bones. People came to her when they needed help." "And your father?" "Died when I was 4. Border skirmish with raiders. I barely remember him." "So it was just you and her?" "Yes." The memory twisted in her chest. "She used to sing while she worked. Old songs I didn't understand the words to, and she'd tell me stories about ancient times when magic wasn't hidden and bloodlines meant something." "What kind of bloodlines?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't know. She never explained, just said our family had a legacy, that someday I'd understand why we had to stay quiet. And then they came." "Yes." Her throat tightened. "Men in black cloaks. They torched every building, killed everyone who ran. My mother grabbed me and we made it to the forest edge, but they followed. I remember her turning to face them, her hands glowing with this terrible light, and then—" She couldn't finish. The screaming, the fire eating through her eyes, her mother's whispered apology before everything went dark. Kaylin's hand found her shoulder. "Whatever she did, she saved you. That ritual, it hid you from them." "But why?" Lyra's voice broke. "Why did they want me dead? I was 7. I couldn't hurt anyone." "They weren't afraid of what you were then. They were afraid of what you'd become." The words settled like stones in her stomach. Garrett called out from ahead. "We're close. Another hour." Lyra mounted again, her body protesting every movement. But something else was stirring now. A pull, like a string tied around her ribs, tugging her forward. The closer they got to Redwater, the stronger it grew. By the time the ruins came into view, her hands were shaking. What was left of the village looked like a mouth full of broken teeth. Burned timbers jutted from overgrown foundations. Stone chimneys stood alone, monuments to houses that no longer existed. Nature had reclaimed most of it, vines crawling over collapsed walls, saplings growing through floorboards. But the temple still stood. It rose at the village's center, made of dark stone that hadn't burned. The roof was gone, open to sky, but the walls remained intact. Symbols covered every surface, spirals and geometric patterns that seemed to shift when Lyra focused on them too long. "Those markings," Garrett said quietly. "I've searched every archive in the kingdom. They don't match any known language." Kaylin dismounted, helped Lyra down. Her legs nearly buckled. The pull was overwhelming now, like hooks in her chest dragging her toward the temple entrance. "Lyra?" Kaylin's voice seemed distant. "What's wrong?" "I don't know." She took a step forward, then another. "Something's calling me." "Wait." But she was already moving, crossing the overgrown square, stepping over rubble, her feet finding the path like they'd walked it 1,000 times. Behind her, she heard Kaylin and Garrett following, heard the soldiers fanning out to secure the perimeter. None of it mattered. The temple doorway yawned before her. Inside, the air smelled different, old, like dust and blood and something else, something that made her enhanced senses scream. She crossed the threshold. The interior was a single large chamber. The stone floor was covered in more symbols, arranged in concentric circles. At the center sat a raised platform, and on that platform— "Is that an altar?" Garrett's voice echoed strangely. "Yes." Lyra moved toward it, drawn by that relentless pull. "This is where she did it, where my mother performed the ritual." Dark stains covered the altar's surface. Blood. Old and new. Garrett had been right. Someone had been using this place recently. Kaylin circled the chamber, examining the walls. These symbols, they're instructions. A ritual formula. "Can you read it?" "Some of it. It's old tongue mixed with something older. References to sealing, binding, concealing power." He trailed off, his finger tracing a particular section. "Wait, this part here, it's talking about bloodlines. Specifically, the Valdris bloodline." The name hit Lyra like a fist. "What?" "Valdris, an ancient house that ruled these lands before the kingdom unified. They were wiped out 3 centuries ago during the Purge Wars, hunted down and executed for practicing forbidden magic." "But what does that have to do with your mother's name, you said it was Voss. That's a common peasant name, yes? Kaylin's eyes were intense. But what if it wasn't always Voss? What if she changed it? What if your real family name is Valdris? The world tilted. Lyra gripped the altar for support, her mother's voice echoing across 12 years. Our family has a legacy. Stay hidden. Stay small. That's impossible, she whispered. The Valdris line died out. Everyone knows that. Everyone thinks that. Garrett moved closer, examining the altar. But what if some survived? What if they've been hiding for 300 years, waiting? Waiting for what? For their power to return. Kaylin's voice was grim. Lyra, look at this. He pointed to a section of wall near the altar. The symbols there were different, fresher, carved recently. They formed words she could almost understand, like reading through fog. When shadow falls and kingdoms break, when false kings claim what they forsake, the sealed one wakes, the blood runs true, and light shall burn through iron and rue. That's a prophecy, Garrett said. And if I'm reading this correctly, it's about you. No, Lyra backed away from the altar. No, that's insane. I can't be. Your mother sealed your power to hide you, Kaylin said. But seals don't last forever. They weaken, crack, especially when exposed to stress or danger. That's why your abilities have been getting stronger. Why you can sense things no one else can. The seal is breaking. And when it breaks completely, Lyra's voice was barely audible, then whatever she locked away comes out. He met her clouded gaze. The question is, what did she lock away? What were you supposed to become? Before anyone could answer, a voice echoed from the doorway. She was supposed to become a weapon. Everyone spun. Seraphine stood at the temple entrance, flanked by a dozen armed men. Not regular soldiers, these wore black cloaks, their faces hidden behind masks, the same cloaks from Lyra's nightmares. How did you... Garrett's hand went to his sword. Follow you? Seraphine smiled. I didn't have to. I've been waiting here for 3 days. Ever since I heard the king was planning this little expedition. She stepped inside, her guards moving to block the exits. Did you really think I didn't know what this place was? What she is? Kaylin moved in front of Lyra. Stand down, Seraphine. Whatever you think you're doing, I'm finishing what my family started 300 years ago. Her voice was cold now, all pretense of nobility stripped away. My real family, the Order of the Broken Chain. We're the ones who hunted the Valdris bloodline to extinction. We're the ones who burned their temples and executed their heirs. And we're the ones who will make sure their power never returns. You killed my village, Lyra said, her voice shaking. You killed my mother. We tried to kill you. Seraphine's eyes glittered behind her mask of civility. But your mother was stronger than we anticipated. She sealed you before we could finish the job. Took away your sight, yes, but also locked away the power that would have let us find you. Very clever. Very desperate. She moved closer. But seals break, Lyra. And when yours started cracking, when you began using your enhanced senses in Gravehold Keep, you sent out a beacon. Called to the very power your mother tried to hide. And we felt it. So you infiltrated the court, Garrett said. The assassination attempts, those weren't meant for the king. They were tests to see if Lyra would react. Precisely. I needed to confirm she was what we'd been searching for, and she confirmed it beautifully. Seraphine gestured to her men. Take her. Kill the others. Everything happened at once. Kaylin's sword cleared its sheath as the masked men charged. Garrett shouted orders, and the soldiers outside rushed in. Steel rang against steel. Blood sprayed across ancient stone. Lyra stumbled backward, her enhanced senses overwhelmed by chaos. Too many heartbeats, too much violence, the smell of blood thick enough to choke on. One of the masked men broke through Kaylin's guard, blade aimed at Lyra's throat. She twisted, felt the air pressure change, knew the strike was coming. And something inside her snapped. The seal her mother had placed 12 years ago didn't just crack, it shattered. Light exploded from Lyra's body, white and burning and impossibly bright. It threw the masked man backward, slammed him into the wall hard enough to break stone. The other attackers recoiled, shields raised, eyes streaming. Lyra screamed. The power flooding through her was agony. Like lightning replacing blood, Like fire chewing through bone, she could feel it rewriting her from the inside out, changing her into something she didn't recognize. Her clouded eyes burned. For one terrible instant, she thought they might melt from her skull. Then, vision. Not sight. Not like before, but something else. Something that let her see the world in overlapping layers. Heat signatures, life energy, the faint glow of magic clinging to the temple walls. She saw Kaelin fighting 3 men at once, saw Garrett bleeding from a shoulder wound, saw Seraphine backing toward the exit, and she saw the symbols on the walls. Really saw them, understood them. They weren't just instructions, they were anchors, holding something down, keeping something sealed beneath the temple floor. The same power that ran through her veins. No, Lyra gasped. No, this place, it's not just a temple, it's a prison. Kaelin cut down his last opponent, wheeled toward her. What? The Valdris bloodline. They weren't just magic users. They were vessels. Guardians. They held something ancient, something dangerous, and the Order hunted them to destroy it. She staggered toward the altar, her new vision showing her the cracks in the floor, the seals weakening with every second. My mother didn't just hide my power, she chained it to this place. Made sure if I died, the prison would hold. But if I lived, if the seal broke, the prison breaks too, Seraphine finished. She'd stopped retreating. Now she stared at Lyra with something between horror and triumph. You stupid girl. Your mother sacrificed everything to keep that thing locked away, and you just released it. The floor trembled. Lyra felt it rising from below, something vast and hungry and utterly inhuman. The thing her ancestors had been born to contain. The reason the Order had spent 3 centuries hunting her bloodline. Cracks spread across the stone. The symbols flared once, brilliant and desperate, then went dark. Everyone out, Kaelin shouted. Now! But it was too late. The altar split down the middle. The floor heaved, and from the depths beneath the temple, something began to climb. Lyra couldn't process what she was seeing. Her new vision showed it as pure wrongness, a shape that hurt to look at, made of shadows and old hatred and magic so corrupted it felt like poison. It took form slowly. A figure. Humanoid but too tall, too thin, its limbs jointed wrong. Where its face should be was a void that seemed to swallow light. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Finally, 300 years in chains, 300 years waiting for a Valdris to break the seal. Seraphine screamed something in a language Lyra didn't know. Her men formed up, but their weapons were shaking. The creature turned toward them, tilted its head. You, the Chainbreakers, you thought killing the Guardians would end me. Instead, you simply delayed the inevitable. One of the masked men lunged. His blade passed through the creature like it was made of smoke. Then the creature's hand, long-fingered and impossibly sharp, lashed out. The man's scream cut off abruptly. His body hit the ground in pieces. Chaos erupted. Seraphine's men fled. Garrett dragged wounded soldiers toward the exit. Kaelin grabbed Lyra's arm. We have to go. I can't. The words tore from her throat. Don't you understand? This thing is bound to my bloodline. My power feeds it. If I run, it follows. It'll hunt me across the entire kingdom until... The creature was suddenly in front of her, too fast to track, its void face inches from hers. Clever child. Your mother understood. That's why she sealed you so completely. Hoped you'd die young and break the cycle. But you survived. It reached out, its fingers brushing Lyra's cheek. She felt her skin burn where it touched. And now you've given me freedom. For that, I'll make your death quick. No! Kaelin's sword swung through the creature. Again it passed harmlessly through. Steel cannot harm me. I am older than your kingdoms, stronger than your weapons. I am the reason your ancestors feared the dark. Lyra's mind raced. Her new vision showed her the creature's form, not solid, but held together by magic. The same magic that ran through her veins, the same power her mother had sealed. An insane idea took shape. You're bound to my bloodline, she said. Yes, your power sustains me, feeds me. Without you, I fade. Then I'll give you what you want. She pulled away from Kaelin, took a step toward the creature. All of it. Everything my mother locked away. But not how you expect. Understanding flashed across Kaelin's face. Lyra, No, if it's feeding on my power, she said, never taking her eyes off the creature, then I'll give it so much power it chokes. Overwhelm it. Burn it out from the inside. Foolish, you don't have that much. Want to bet? She pressed her palms against the creature's chest. The world exploded into white fire. Lyra felt her power pour out, not in a trickle, but a flood. Every bit of sealed magic her mother had locked away for 12 years, every scrap of Valdris heritage running through her blood, she unleashed it all at once. The creature screamed, actually screamed, a sound that shattered windows and cracked stone. It tried to pull away, but Lyra held on even as her skin burned, even as her new vision showed her the creature's form destabilizing, coming apart at the seams. Stop, you'll kill yourself. Good! She poured more power into it. Better me dead than you free. The creature thrashed. Its shape flickered, becoming less solid, more transparent. Lyra felt her strength draining, felt herself dying by inches, but she didn't let go. Kaelin was shouting. Garrett was pulling at her shoulders, trying to break the connection. But she was locked in, bound to the creature by magic and blood and 300 years of her family's mistakes. Then, arms around her waist, Kaelin's voice in her ear, desperate. You're not dying alone. If you burn, I burn with you. His hands covered hers, and somehow, impossibly, she felt his strength flowing into her. Not magic, just pure stubborn will. The same force that had built his kingdom, won his wars, refused to bend even when the world demanded it. It was enough. The creature's scream reached a pitch that human ears couldn't follow. Its form collapsed inward, imploding, tearing apart. The void face twisted into something almost human, surprised, betrayed, furious. Then it was gone. The backlash threw them both backward. Lyra hit the floor hard enough to crack ribs, her vision, both kinds, going white, then black, then settling into something manageable. She lay gasping, every nerve ending screaming. Beside her, Kaelin groaned. Did that work? It's gone, Garrett's voice hoarse with relief. The creature, it's gone. Slowly, painfully, Lyra sat up. The temple was a ruin. The walls had cracked, the altar was dust, and the floor where the creature had emerged was now just a smoking crater. Seraphine stood in the doorway, her mask finally gone. Her face was pale, eyes wide with shock. You destroyed it, she whispered. 3 centuries we've hunted your bloodline to prevent that thing's release, and you destroyed it in minutes. By releasing it first, Lyra's voice was raw. My mother sealed me to protect the prison. I broke the seal and broke the prison. The creature escaped. She forced herself to stand, every muscle protesting. But I'm still a Valdris, still a vessel. And vessels can contain things or they can destroy them from the inside out. Seraphine stared at her for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. You magnificent fool, she said. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Order's entire purpose was preventing that creature's escape. Our families have sacrificed everything for 300 years to keep it contained. And you, a blind servant who didn't even know her own name, you ended it, ended everything we've been fighting. So what now? Kaelin asked, his sword still drawn. You try to kill her anyway? Why would I? Seraphine's laughter faded into something bitter. The threat is gone. My purpose is gone. The Order is obsolete. She looked at Lyra with something that might have been respect. Your bloodline was cursed with guardianship. Mine was cursed with hunting. Today, we're both free. She turned and walked away, her surviving men following. Within moments, they disappeared into the forest. Garrett moved to pursue, but Kaelin stopped him. Let her go. We have bigger problems. He was right. The temple was collapsing, stones grinding together as the foundation gave way. And Lyra could barely stand. The power she'd unleashed had burned through her like wildfire. Her new vision was fading, her enhanced senses dulling. She felt hollow, used up. Can you ride? Kaelin asked gently. I don't think I can walk. He lifted her without hesitation, carried her from the crumbling temple into afternoon light. The soldiers had brought horses close. Garrett organized a retreat while Kaelin settled Lyra onto his own mount, climbing up behind her to keep her from falling. As they rode away, Lyra looked back at the ruins. Smoke rose from the temple's remains, her mother's grave, her family's legacy, all of it turning to ash. What am I now? She whispered. Kaylin's arms tightened around her. You're alive. That's enough for today. But alive wasn't the same as safe. As they crossed into Gravehold territory at dusk, Lyra felt something new stirring in her chest. Not the creature's corruption, not the sealed power, something else. Something that felt like light but burned like rage. The Valdris bloodline had spent 3 centuries in hiding. 3 centuries hunted and afraid. That was over now. Whatever she was becoming, whatever the broken seal had started, she would face it on her own terms. And anyone who tried to stop her would learn exactly why her family had been feared in the first place. The keep's walls appeared on the horizon just as full dark fell. Torches burned on the battlements. Home. Or what passed for it. Lyra closed her eyes, exhaustion dragging her toward unconsciousness. But before she slipped under, she heard Garrett's voice, urgent and low. Your Majesty, we have a problem. Riders approaching from the south, fast. They're carrying House Vyer's banner. Kaylin tensed. How many? 30, maybe more. They're in formation. This isn't a delegation. It's an army. Lyra forced her eyes open. Marcus Vyer. He's coming for me. Let him come. Kaylin's voice was steel. We'll be ready. But as they rode through the gates, as soldiers rushed to defensive positions and alarm bells began to ring, Lyra felt it again, that pull, that wrongness. The creature was gone. The temple was destroyed. The seal was broken. So why did her blood still feel like it was burning? Why did the symbols from the temple walls dance behind her eyelids when she closed them? And why, when she reached out with her fading senses, could she feel something else waking beneath Gravehold Keep? Something old, something hungry, something that had been waiting for a Valdris to come home. Lyra woke to iron. Not chains, though she half expected them. Just the smell, sharp and metallic, coating her tongue, making her stomach turn. She lay in her quarters in the tower, but something was wrong. The air felt heavier, older. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the screaming protest from her ribs. Her vision was still strange. Not blind anymore, but not normal either. She saw the world in layers now, heat and life and magic all bleeding together into something she was still learning to interpret. And beneath the keep, something was glowing. You're awake. Kaylin sat in the chair by her window, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Probably hadn't. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his jaw was tight with exhaustion. How do you feel? Like I was used as kindling. Her voice came out hoarse. How long was I out? 18 hours. The healers said you'd burned through so much energy you should be dead. His expression was grim. But you're not. You're healing faster than anyone I've ever seen. Valdris blood, she said bitterly. Can't even die properly. Good. Because we need you alive. He stood, crossed to her bedside. Marcus Vyer's army is camped outside the southern gate. They arrived 6 hours ago with a formal demand. Turn you over for trial as a dangerous magical threat, or they'll consider it an act of war. Lyra's stomach dropped. Trial means execution. Yes. So he's using me as an excuse to attack. Essentially. Kaylin's jaw tightened further. The court is divided. Half want to hand you over to preserve peace. The other half... He trailed off. The other half what? They're afraid of you. After what happened at Redwater, Garrett's been spreading the story. A blind servant destroying an ancient evil that entire bloodlines spent centuries trying to contain. It's the kind of tale that makes people either worship you or want you burned at the stake. Which side is winning? Neither. That's the problem. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. We're balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move and this kingdom tears itself apart. Lyra swung her legs off the bed, tested her weight. Her body held, though everything ached. Then we make the right move. Which is? She looked at him with her strange new vision, seeing the exhaustion radiating off him like heat. This man had risked everything for her. His throne, his reputation, possibly his life. And she'd repaid him by bringing war to his gates. Time to stop being the problem and start being the solution. Marcus Vyer wants me? Fine, I'll go to him. Absolutely not. Kaylin's voice went hard. That's exactly what he wants. The moment you step outside these walls, I know, but I won't be stepping outside. I'll be walking through. She moved to the window, looked down at the training yards. Soldiers everywhere, preparing for siege. You said people are afraid of what I did at Redwater. They should be, because I'm just starting to understand what I'm capable of. Lyra, there's something under this keep, Kaelin. Something old. I can feel it calling to me, the same way the temple did. She turned to face him. My bloodline wasn't just about containing one creature. We were guardians of power itself. And this keep, it's built on one of those power sources. His expression shifted from concern to sharp attention. You're saying Gravehold is sitting on top of ancient magic? I'm saying your ancestors chose this spot for a reason. The stone here isn't just stone. It's threaded with the same energy that ran through the Valdris temples. That's why it's so strong. Why attacks against it always fail. The keep itself is a seal. And you can access it. I think so. When the seal on me broke, it connected me to other sources. Like opening doors I didn't know existed. She flexed her fingers, feeling power hum beneath her skin. Weaker than before, but rebuilding, growing. Give me 12 hours, let me explore what's down there. Then we'll deal with Marcus Vire. 12 hours is all we have anyway. Kaelin's tone was grim. He's given us until dawn to respond. After that, he attacks. Then I'd better work fast. She moved toward the door, but Kaelin caught her wrist. Lyra, if this goes wrong, if whatever's down there is like the creature at Redwater, then I'll destroy it the same way I destroyed that one. From the inside out. She met his gaze. I'm not afraid of burning anymore. I'm only afraid of standing still while everything falls apart. He studied her for a long moment, then released her. I'm coming with you. You're needed up here, coordinating defenses. Garrett can handle that. You're going into unknown depths of this keep chasing ancient magic. I'm not letting you do it alone. The determination in his voice left no room for argument. Fine, she said. But if something tries to kill us, I'm pushing you out of the way and handling it myself. We'll see about that. They gathered supplies, torches, rope, weapons that probably wouldn't help but made them feel better anyway. Garrett protested the plan, was overruled, and grudgingly agreed to hold the keep together in their absence. If you're not back by dawn, he said, I'm sending soldiers down to drag you both out. If we're not back by dawn, Kaelin replied, it means we're dead. Save your soldiers for the walls. They descended. The keep's foundations ran deep, deeper than Lyra had ever suspected. Past the dungeons, past the old wine cellars, down stairs that looked like they'd been carved before the kingdom existed. The air grew colder as they went, and that iron smell intensified. Lyra led the way, following the pull in her blood. Her new vision showed her carvings on the walls, similar to the temple symbols but older, more primal. Not instructions this time, warnings. Can you read these? Kaelin asked, his torch casting flickering shadows. Some of it. It's talking about a convergence, a place where ley lines meet, where the world's power pools. She traced one symbol with her finger. The Valdris didn't just guard dangerous creatures. They built sanctuaries, places where magic could be channeled safely instead of running wild. And someone built Gravehold on top of one. Someone who knew what they were doing. They reached a landing, a massive door set into living rock. More symbols covered its surface, these ones glowing faintly. This is it, the heart of the keep. How do we open it? Lyra pressed her palm against the door. The symbols flared brighter, responding to her touch, to her blood. Like this. The door groaned. Stone scraped against stone, and it swung inward, revealing a chamber beyond. The space was enormous. A natural cavern, but shaped, walls smoothed, floor leveled, the ceiling lost in darkness above. At the chamber's center sat a pool. Not water. Pure light, swirling and luminescent, casting everything in shades of gold and white. Lyra's breath caught. It's beautiful. It's dangerous. Kaelin's hand went to his sword. I can feel it from here. That much power concentrated in one place is exactly what we need. She moved toward the pool, drawn by that relentless pull. This is what my ancestors guarded. Raw magic, unfiltered. In the wrong hands, it could level kingdoms, but in the right hands... She knelt at the pool's edge, looked into its depths. Her reflection stared back, but wrong. Younger, whole. with clear eyes that saw everything. "This is what I was supposed to be," she whispered. "Before the seal, before my mother's sacrifice. This is the power she locked away. And now? Now the seal's broken, and I can choose what to do with it." She looked up at Kaylin. "I could take it. All of it. Become something unstoppable. Walk out there and face Marcus Veyer's army alone. Burn them to ash before they could blink. But my mother didn't seal me to make me a weapon. She sealed me to give me a choice." Lyra stood, turned away from the pool. "I don't want to be feared. I don't want to be the thing people tell stories about to scare children. I want to be human, flawed, capable of mistakes." "You already are all those things." Kaylin moved beside her. "But right now, being human isn't enough. Marcus has 300 soldiers and siege weapons. We have walls and courage. That math doesn't work in our favor." "So I should become a monster to save us?" "I'm saying you should use the tools you have. This power, it's part of you, your birthright. Using it doesn't make you a monster any more than me using a sword makes me one." He touched her shoulder gently. "The question isn't whether you use it, it's how." Lyra looked back at the pool, at the power swirling there, ancient and patient, waiting. "There might be another way," she said slowly. "The Valdris weren't just guardians, they were channelers. They took raw magic and shaped it, made it useful instead of dangerous." She turned to Kaylin. "What if I could do that here? Not take the power for myself, but channel it into the keep. Make these walls truly unbreakable? Is that possible?" "I don't know. But the alternative is burning Marcus's army. And then what? We win this fight, but start a war with every house that sided with him. The kingdom tears itself apart." She looked at the symbols on the walls, trying to understand their patterns. "If I can channel this power into Gravehold itself, make it so strong that attacking becomes pointless, then Marcus has no choice but to negotiate. Or he sees it as proof you're too dangerous to live. Maybe. But at least I won't have killed 300 people to prove I'm not a threat." She met his gaze. "Will you help me?" Kaylin studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled, sharp and fierce and full of pride. "Always." They worked through the night. Lyra used her new vision to trace the ley lines running beneath the keep, following them like veins through stone. Kaylin marked where they surfaced, in the walls, the foundations, the ancient pillars holding up the great hall. They found the convergence points, the places where power pooled and waited. And slowly, carefully, Lyra began to channel. It wasn't like at Redwater. There, she'd unleashed everything at once, a flood meant to overwhelm and destroy. Here, she had to be precise. Guide the power instead of drowning in it. Let it flow through her without taking it into herself. It was excruciating. Every channeling attempt felt like swallowing lightning. Her nerves screamed, her muscles locked. Twice she collapsed, and Kaylin had to drag her away from the pool before the power burned her alive. But she kept trying, because the alternative was becoming exactly what Marcus Veyer claimed she was. A threat too dangerous to allow. Hours blurred together. At some point, Garrett came down to check on them, took one look at Lyra's shaking hands and Kaylin's exhausted face, and left without comment. Dawn was approaching. They were running out of time. "One more try," Lyra said, her voice raw. "If this doesn't work, it'll work." Kaylin's faith was absolute. "You've already figured out how. Now you just have to do it." She knelt at the pool again, placed both hands in the light, felt it surge up her arms, into her chest, threatening to consume her. But this time she didn't fight it, didn't try to contain or control it. She just opened herself, became a conduit instead of a vessel, let the power flow through her and into the stone beneath her knees, into the walls around her, into every ancient foundation stone the Valdris had laid centuries ago. The keep began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter, light bleeding through cracks in the stone, racing up through foundations and walls and towers. The entire fortress lit up like a star, visible for miles in every direction. Lyra felt it settle into place, felt the ley lines align, the power distribute evenly, the keep itself become something more than just stone and mortar. She pulled her hands from the pool and collapsed. Kaylin caught her before she hit the ground. "Lyra?" "It worked," she gasped. "I can feel it. The keep it's alive now. Not conscious, but aware. It'll protect itself." Protect everyone inside it. Can you stand? Give me a minute. She leaned against him, her body trembling with exhaustion. How long until Marcus attacks? If the sun's up, we're already out of time. They climbed back to the surface, Kaelin supporting half her weight. The stairs seemed endless, but when they finally emerged into the tower and looked out the window, the siege had stopped. Marcus Veyer's army was still there, but they'd pulled back. Soldiers stood in loose formation, staring at the keep with expressions Lyra could read even from this distance. Fear. The walls were glowing. Not bright enough to blind, but enough to see. A soft, steady light that pulsed like a heartbeat. And anyone looking at it could feel what Lyra had done, could sense the power humming through the stone. Gravehold Keep had become a sanctuary, a place where violence would break against defenses that didn't just resist attack, they rejected it entirely. Well, Garrett said from behind them. He sounded stunned. That's one way to end a siege. A horn sounded from the army's camp, not an attack signal, a parley. Kaelin straightened. Marcus wants to talk. Let him. Lyra forced herself to stand without support, even though her legs were shaking. But this time, I'm coming with you. They met at the southern gate. Kaelin, Lyra, Garrett, and a dozen guards facing Marcus Veyer and his commanders. The Lord looked older than Lyra remembered, harder. His face was carved from stone and old grievances. Your Majesty, Marcus said. His voice was cold, formal. I see you've made your position clear. Have I? Kaelin's tone was dangerously mild. And what position is that? That you'll defend this creature, no matter the cost. Marcus's gaze fixed on Lyra, even if it means transforming your own keep into a magical fortress. I didn't transform it, Lyra said. I just activated what was already there. Gravehold was built on ancient power. Your ancestors knew that when they swore fealty to this place. I just reminded the stone of its purpose. Its purpose is to protect a kingdom, not to harbor threats. I'm only a threat to people who attack first. She took a step forward, and Marcus's guards tensed, but she didn't move aggressively, just stood there, letting him see what she'd become. I destroyed the creature at Redwater, the thing your family's order spent 3 centuries trying to contain. I could have taken that power for myself, could have become something unstoppable, but I chose not to. I chose to channel it into protection instead of destruction. How noble! The sarcasm was thick. And when the next crisis comes, when you decide the kingdom needs your protection, whether we want it or not, then Kaelin stops me. Or Garrett does. Or someone else with the courage to stand between me and whatever line I'm crossing. She met his gaze steadily. I'm not asking for worship, Lord Veyer. I'm asking for the same thing I've wanted since I was 7 years old, the right to exist without constantly proving I deserve it. Silence fell. The armies watched. The keep glowed softly behind them, a reminder of what Lyra could do when pushed. Marcus's jaw worked. My daughter, your daughter is alive because I let her be, Lyra interrupted. At Redwater, I could have destroyed her along with the creature. She'd orchestrated 2 assassination attempts and was actively trying to have me killed, but I didn't touch her. Do you know why? Enlighten me. Because I'm not the monster you think I am. I'm just someone who's tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of apologizing for surviving. Her voice hardened. So here's my offer, Lord Veyer. Go home. Take your army and leave. Let Kaelin rule his kingdom without you holding a blade to his throat. And in return, I swear, on my family's name, on the blood that runs through these stones, I will never use this power against the innocent. I will guard it, channel it, make sure it protects instead of destroys. And if you break that oath, then you'll have every right to come back and end me. But you'll do it knowing I had the chance to burn your army to ash and chose peace instead. She glanced at Kaelin. The king has already proven he's willing to risk everything for what he believes in. Now I'm asking you to do the same. Believe that maybe, just maybe, I'm exactly what I claim to be. Someone trying to survive in a world that's been trying to kill her since childhood. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted to Kaelin. You trust her. With my life. Multiple times now. And you truly believe she won't become the threat we fear? I believe she already had that choice and made the right one. Kalen's voice was absolute. At Redwater, she could have claimed godlike power. Here, she could have annihilated your forces before they set up camp. She did neither. That tells me everything I need to know about her character. More silence. Marcus's commanders shifted uneasily. The army waited for orders. Finally, Marcus exhaled roughly. You're either the bravest king I've ever known or the most foolish. History will decide which. Indeed. Marcus turned to his second in command. Break camp, we're withdrawing. Shock rippled through both sides. One of Marcus's commanders stepped forward. My lord, if we back down now we demonstrate wisdom instead of pride. Marcus's tone brooked no argument. The girl had chances to destroy us and didn't. That earns her a reprieve. For now. He looked back at Lyra. But know this, I will be watching. And if you prove to be the threat I suspect, no glowing walls will stop me from seeing justice done. I'd expect nothing less, Lyra said. Marcus gave a curt nod, turned, and walked back to his army. Orders were shouted. Tents began coming down. Within an hour, the siege was over. Lyra watched them go, her body finally giving out. She sat down hard on the ground, her vision swimming. Kalen knelt beside her. You did it. We did it. She managed a weak smile. Though I'm never channeling that much power again, I feel like I've been turned inside out. Worth it? She looked at the keep, her home, whether she'd meant it to be or not. At the soldiers on the walls cheering, at Garrett's rare smile, at Kalen's face, pride and relief mixing into something that made her chest ache. Yeah, she said softly. Worth it. They helped her inside, up the tower stairs, back to her quarters, where she collapsed onto her bed and immediately passed out. When she woke again, it was night. Someone had left food and water on her bedside table, and sitting in the chair by the window, keeping watch like he had every right to be there. Kalen. You don't have to guard me, she said, her voice rough with sleep. The crisis is over. This crisis is over. He didn't turn from the window. Others will come. Marcus backed down, but he's not the only lord with concerns. The court is still divided. Seraphine is still out there, and the order won't simply dissolve because their ancient enemy is dead. So we're not safe. We're safer than we were. That counts for something. He finally looked at her. You changed the game today, Lyra. Forced them to see you as something other than a threat or a victim. That's victory, even if it's not permanent. She sat up slowly, testing her body. The exhaustion had faded, leaving behind a new kind of strength. Not the overwhelming power from the pool, but something steadier, more controlled. What happens now? She asked. Now we rebuild. Strengthen alliances. Prove that your power serves the kingdom instead of threatening it. He stood, crossed to her bedside. And we figure out what to do about the fact that you're not just my attendant anymore. You're something else. Something the kingdom needs to acknowledge. What do you mean? Kalen smiled. I mean, tomorrow, we're calling a council session, and I'm formally naming you Guardian of Gravehold. Lyra's breath caught. That's a real position, with authority, with the recognition you've earned. His expression was serious now. You saved this keep twice. You ended an ancient threat and prevented a war in the same week. The blind servant who scrubbed floors is gone, Lyra. Time to decide who you want to be in her place. She looked at her hands, scarred from years of labor, burned from channeling power, still trembling slightly from exhaustion, hands that had destroyed and protected in equal measure. I want to be someone who chooses protection, she said quietly, every single time, even when destruction would be easier. Then that's who you'll be. He squeezed her shoulder once. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start building your legend the right way. He left. Lyra lay back down, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the keep hummed with the power she'd channeled into its bones. A living fortress, a sanctuary. And for the first time since her mother had stolen her sight and hidden her in darkness, Lyra felt like she'd finally come home. The council chamber had never felt so small. Lyra stood at Kalen's side, facing the assembled nobles. 30 lords and ladies representing every major house in the kingdom. The same people who'd called her a threat, who'd demanded her execution. who'd bet on her failure in the forest hunt. Now they stared at her with something between fear and reluctant respect. Guardian of Gravehold, Lord Brennan said slowly, testing the words. That's quite a title for someone who was scrubbing floors 3 months ago. 3 months ago, she was the only thing standing between me and a poisoned blade, Kalen said. His voice carried absolute authority. Since then, she's prevented 2 more assassination attempts, destroyed an ancient evil, and made this fortress genuinely impregnable. I'd say she's earned the title. And what exactly does this guardian do? Lady Corvin asked. She'd been one of the neutral voices, not hostile but not supportive either. What authority does this position carry? She protects the keep, Kalen said. Monitors threats, uses her abilities to ensure the safety of everyone within these walls, and she answers directly to the crown. So she's above the law? Marcus Vyer's voice cut through the murmurs. He'd returned 2 days after withdrawing his army, ostensibly to negotiate peace terms. Really, Lyra suspected, to make sure she hadn't secretly built an army of magical constructs. Answerable to no one but you? She's answerable to the same laws as everyone else, Kalen replied. But her methods are her own. Just as your commanders choose their tactics in battle, she'll choose how best to defend this fortress. With magic. The word dropped like a stone. Unregulated, uncontrolled magic. Channeled magic, Lyra corrected. I'm not pulling power from nowhere. I'm working with what already exists beneath this keep, what's been here for centuries. And if you decide that channeled magic needs to be used offensively, Marcus pressed, if the kingdom faces invasion and you determine the best defense is to burn our enemies alive? The chamber went silent. Lyra met his gaze steadily. Then I'll burn them, if it's truly necessary, if it's the only way to protect innocent lives. But I'll make that choice carefully, Lord Vire. The same way you make the choice to send soldiers into battle knowing some won't return. Power doesn't make me less responsible. It makes me more so. Pretty words. Marcus leaned back. Let's hope they hold when tested. They will, Kalen said, because I trust her. And because this kingdom needs what she offers, protection that doesn't rely on steel alone. What it needs, a new voice said, is accountability. Everyone turned. Seraphine Vire stood in the doorway. She looked different, plainer. No elaborate gown, no jewelry, no mask of aristocratic beauty, just simple traveling clothes and exhaustion carved into her features. Seraphine, Marcus stood, shock and anger warring on his face. What are you doing here? Accepting consequences. She walked into the chamber, her shoulders back despite the obvious fear in her eyes. Your Majesty, I come to confess my crimes. I orchestrated the assassination attempts. I spread false rumors to undermine Lyra. I worked with the Order of the Broken Chain to destabilize your rule, and I accept whatever punishment you deem appropriate. Chaos erupted. Nobles shouting questions, guards moving to restrain her, Marcus trying to reach his daughter through the crowd. Kalen raised a hand, and silence fell. Why now? He asked Seraphine. Because the order is finished. The creature they'd spent centuries containing is destroyed. My purpose, my family's purpose, is gone. She looked directly at Lyra. And because you were right, at Redwater, you could have killed me, should have killed me, but you didn't. That mercy. I've been thinking about it for days, trying to understand why. I'm not a killer, Lyra said quietly. I never wanted to be. I know. That's what makes you dangerous, Seraphine smiled bitterly. Not because of your power, because of your character. You'll always choose the harder path, the one that saves people instead of destroying them. And that makes the rest of us look like cowards by comparison. She turned back to Kalen. I'm guilty of treason. Multiple counts. I'll plead no defense if you choose to execute me, but first I want to say something publicly. She faced the assembled nobles. The girl you fear saved all of us. Not just from the creature, but from ourselves. My family's order. We became the very thing we were fighting. We hunted innocent people because of their bloodline. We justified murder by calling it prevention. And Lyra ended that cycle. She destroyed the threat and proved that the Valdris line was never the danger we believed it to be. Easy to say now, Lord Brennan muttered. When you've got nothing left to lose. I have my life to lose, Seraphine shot back. and I'm offering it freely if that's what's required. But I won't die without speaking truth. Lyra Voss is not your enemy. Fear and tradition are. The chamber fell silent again. Lyra could feel the shift. Not everyone convinced, but the doubt cracking. The foundation of hostility starting to crumble. Kaelin spoke carefully. Seraphine Vire, your confession is accepted. You'll be confined to quarters while we determine appropriate sentencing. Guards, take her. As they led her away, Seraphine paused beside Lyra. Thank you, she whispered, for not becoming what we feared. Then she was gone. Marcus remained standing, his face ashen. Your Majesty, my daughter's actions are her own, Kaelin interrupted. Not yours. House Vire's loyalty isn't in question, but Seraphine will answer for her choices regardless of her bloodline. Marcus nodded stiffly, sat down. The defeat in his posture was absolute. Kaelin returned his attention to the council. We're facing a new era. Magic is no longer something we can pretend doesn't exist. Lyra has proven it's real, powerful, and, when properly channeled, beneficial. The question before this council is simple. Do we adapt to this reality, or do we cling to old fears and watch our kingdom fall behind? Adapt how? Lady Corvin asked. By acknowledging that Gravehold Keep is now a sanctuary, a place where those with magical abilities can find protection instead of persecution. He gestured to Lyra. The Valdris bloodline nearly went extinct because we hunted them. How many other gifted people are hiding in fear? How much potential are we wasting by treating power as a crime? You're proposing we harbor magic users, Lord Brennan said slowly. Openly. I'm proposing we stop pretending magic isn't part of this world, that we study it, understand it, use it responsibly instead of trying to stamp it out. Kaelin's voice hardened. 3 assassination attempts in 3 months. Our enemies aren't afraid of traditional defenses anymore. We need new tools, new strategies, and Lyra has proven those exist. The debate raged for hours, arguments for and against, fear and hope wrestling in every voice. Lyra stood silent through it all, letting them decide her fate. She'd done her part, proven herself. Now it was up to them whether that was enough. Finally, as afternoon light slanted through the high windows, Kaelin called for a vote. Those in favor of establishing Lyra Voss as guardian of Gravehold and opening the keep as a sanctuary for magical study? Hands rose, slowly at first, then faster. Lady Corvin, Lord Brennan, even some of the minor houses who'd been hostile before. Kaelin counted. 23 in favor, 7 opposed. The measure passes. Relief flooded through Lyra so powerfully her knees nearly buckled. Kaelin's hand found her elbow, steadying her. Thank you, he said to the council. This session is adjourned. As nobles filed out, some congratulating her awkwardly, others avoiding eye contact entirely, Marcus Vire approached. Guardian Voss, he said formally. The title clearly tasted bitter. My daughter will face justice for her crimes, but thank you for not taking the easy path at Redwater. I'm sorry about the order, Lyra said. I know it was your family's legacy. A legacy built on hunting children. Marcus's jaw tightened. Perhaps it's time we built something better. He left. Garrett appeared at Lyra's side, a rare smile crossing his scarred face. Well, Guardian has a nice ring to it. Sounds fake, Lyra said, but she was smiling too. Like I'm pretending to be someone important. You are someone important. Get used to it. He clapped her shoulder. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to reorganize the entire security structure around your new position. This is going to be a nightmare. He walked off, already barking orders at subordinate officers. Kaelin waited until they were alone. How do you feel? Terrified, Lyra admitted. I've spent my whole life trying to be invisible. Now I'm supposed to be a symbol. You're supposed to be yourself, that's all. He guided her toward the tower stairs. Come on. There's something I want to show you. They climbed to the highest point of the keep, the king's private balcony. From here, the entire kingdom spread out below, forests and fields, villages and roads, all the way to the horizon. This is what you're protecting now, Kaelin said. Not just the keep, not just me, all of it. Lyra's strange vision showed her the ley lines running beneath the landscape like veins of light. The power sources. The old places where magic still pooled and waited. So many of them. A whole network she was only beginning to understand. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she whispered. "You destroyed an ancient evil and prevented a war in the same week. I think you're strong enough." He turned to face her. "But you won't have to do it alone. That's what I wanted to tell you. This position, Guardian, it's not just a title. It comes with resources, authority, people who'll help you." "Like who?" "Like Roderick. He's requested permanent assignment to your detail. Says you're the most interesting person he's trained in 20 years. Kaelin smiled. "Like Garrett, who's already drawing up protocols for identifying and protecting other magic users. Like me." His tone shifted on that last part. Became something softer, more personal. "You?" Lyra's heart kicked in her chest. "I meant what I said at Redwater. If you burn, I burn with you." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're not just the guardian of this keep, Lyra. You matter. To the kingdom. To me." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. "Kaelin," she didn't know how to finish, didn't know if she should. "I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know this is complicated. I'm the king. You're you. There are protocols and expectations and 1,000 reasons why this would be a terrible idea. But I'm tired of pretending I don't care about you beyond what you can do for the kingdom." His hand settled on her cheek, warm and solid. "You're brave and stubborn, and you've made me question everything I thought I knew about power and responsibility. And somewhere between you saving my life and nearly dying to protect people you'd never met, I fell for you." Lyra's breath caught. "That's really bad timing," he laughed. "The worst. We've got a kingdom to stabilize, a new magical program to build, Seraphine's trial to oversee, and about a dozen other crises waiting to happen. So what do? We figure it out, together, like we've done everything else." His thumb traced her cheekbone gently. "Unless you're not interested. In which case, pretend I never said anything, and we'll go back to being professional colleagues." Lyra thought about it, about everything that had brought her here, the fire that took her sight, the years scrubbing floors, the moment Kaelin had pulled her into the light instead of letting her hide. She thought about the choice she'd made at Redwater, at the pool beneath the keep, every single time she'd chosen protection over destruction, and she realized she'd been protecting her heart the same way, keeping it sealed, hidden, safe from hurt. Maybe it was time to stop. "I'm interested," she said quietly, terrified and completely unprepared and pretty sure we're both insane, but interested. His smile was devastating. "Good, because I'm not sure I could have handled professional distance much longer." He kissed her then, gentle at first, testing, then deeper when she responded, her hands finding his shoulders, his arms wrapping around her waist. For a moment, the kingdom and its problems fell away. There was just this, warmth and connection and the dizzying realization that she wasn't alone anymore. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kaelin rested his forehead against hers. "We're going to catch so much grief for this," he said. "Probably." Lyra couldn't stop smiling. "Worth it?" "Absolutely." A knock on the door interrupted them. Garrett's voice. "Your Majesty, there's a situation." Kaelin sighed. "Of course there is." He squeezed Lyra's hand once. "Duty calls, but we're continuing this conversation later. I'll hold you to that." They returned to the council room where Garrett had assembled maps and reports. "We've had 3 requests in the last hour," he said. "Families claiming to have members with magical abilities, asking if the sanctuary offer is real." Lyra's stomach flipped. "Already?" "Word travels fast, especially when it's about something people have been hiding for generations." Garrett tapped one of the maps. "This family in the eastern provinces has a daughter who can sense storms before they form. This one in the south has a son who heals faster than normal. And this one," he hesitated, "a widow claiming her late husband could speak to the dead. She wants to know if that was real or if he was mad." "They're scared," Lyra said. "They've spent their whole lives thinking they were broken, cursed. Now someone's saying maybe they're not." "Can we handle this?" Kaelin asked. "Logistically, we don't have structures in place for... We build them." Lyra straightened her shoulders. We start small. Bring in the families who've already come forward, test their abilities, figure out what's real and what's not. Then we establish protocols, training programs, ways to help them control their gifts instead of fearing them. That's going to take years, Garrett said. Then we'd better start now. She looked at Kaylin. This is what you meant, wasn't it? About adapting to a new era. We're not just protecting the kingdom from magical threats. We're integrating magic into the kingdom itself. Yes. He smiled, pride evident in his expression. Think you can handle being the face of that movement? I think I don't have a choice. Someone has to do it. Might as well be the blind girl who broke every rule to get here. Over the following weeks, everything changed. The families came. Slowly at first, then in a steady stream. Some with real abilities, others just desperate for acceptance. Lyra worked with each one, using her enhanced senses to distinguish genuine magic from wishful thinking. She found a boy who could make plants grow with a touch, a woman who saw glimpses of possible futures, an old man whose presence calmed animals and aggressive people alike. Each one she welcomed, protected, helped them understand they weren't alone. The keep transformed. What had been servants' quarters became residential halls. The old armory was converted into a training space where people learned to control their gifts. The library expanded to include research on magical theory, history, practical applications. And through it all, Kaylin stood beside her, defending the program to skeptical lords, funding the expansion, quietly, steadily building the future they'd envisioned together. Seraphine's trial concluded after a month, guilty on all counts. But instead of execution, Kaylin offered her a choice, exile or service. She chose service. Now she worked in the library, cataloging everything the Order had known about magic and bloodlines, turning centuries of hunting knowledge into protection instead. Ironic, she said to Lyra one afternoon, as they reviewed old texts together. I spent my life trying to destroy what you represent. Now I'm helping build it. People change, Lyra said. If I can go from servant to guardian, you can go from assassin to scholar. I tried to kill you, multiple times. And I chose not to kill you back. We're even. Seraphine studied her. You really believe that? I believe grudges are exhausting, and I've got better things to do with my energy. Lyra turned a page in the manuscript she'd been reading. Like figuring out why this text says there are 7 major ley line convergences in the kingdom, but I've only found 6. 7? Seraphine leaned over. Where's the last one supposed to be? They found it 3 days later, buried beneath the ruins of an old fortress on the western border. Another sanctuary, abandoned centuries ago when the Purge Wars made magic illegal. Lyra stood in the crumbling chamber, feeling the power pulse beneath her feet, and made a decision. We're going to restore this place, she told Kaylin. Make it a second sanctuary. Expand the network. That's ambitious. So is turning a blind servant into guardian. How's that working out for you? He laughed. Better than I could have imagined. 6 months after the council vote, Gravehold Keep hosted its first graduation ceremony. 23 people who'd completed initial training, learning to control their abilities, understanding the ethics of power, committing to use their gifts for protection. Lyra stood before them, trying not to feel like an imposter. These people looked at her like she was something special, a symbol of hope instead of fear. You're going to make mistakes, she told them. I still do. You're going to face people who hate you for what you are, who call you unnatural or dangerous or worse. And sometimes they'll have good reasons for that fear. Because power is dangerous, magic is dangerous, we are dangerous. She paused, letting that sink in. But danger isn't the same as evil. A sword is dangerous. Fire is dangerous. The king's authority is dangerous. What matters is how we use it, who we choose to protect, what lines we refuse to cross. She thought of her mother's sacrifice, of the choice she'd made at Redwater. My family spent 300 years running from who they were, hiding their power because the world said it was wrong. Today, we stop running. We claim our place, and we prove that magic, properly channeled, can protect instead of destroy. Applause filled the hall, genuine, enthusiastic. Later, at the celebration feast, Kaylin pulled her aside. You were good up there. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. He handed her a glass of wine, the first she'd accepted since that poisoned banquet months ago. To new beginnings. To survival, Lyra countered. Everything else is bonus. They drank. Around them, the hall buzzed with life. Magic users mingling with soldiers. Nobles cautiously asking questions. Children playing without fear. This was what Sanctuary looked like. Messy and imperfect and absolutely worth fighting for. I have something for you, Kalen said. He produced a small wooden box from his pocket. Lyra opened it carefully. Inside lay a pendant, simple silver, etched with the same symbols from beneath the keep. The Valdris family crest Garrett had identified. Lost for 3 centuries. I had it commissioned, Kalen said. Thought you should have something that represents where you came from, who you've always been, even when you didn't know it. Lyra's throat tightened. It's beautiful. It's yours. Like this keep. Like this position. Like... He stopped, suddenly uncertain. Like you? She finished. I was trying to be subtle. You're terrible at subtle. She reached up, pulled him down into a kiss. Right there in the middle of the feast, where everyone could see. Let them talk. Let them gossip. She'd spent 12 years hiding. She was done. When she pulled back, Kalen was grinning. The council's going to have opinions about this. The council can deal with it. She fastened the pendant around her neck, feeling its weight settle against her chest. I'm the guardian of Gravehold. I protect the kingdom. Who I love is my own business. Love? His voice went soft. Don't make me take it back. Wouldn't dream of it. He kissed her again, slower this time. For the record, I love you too. Have since you tackled that assassin and proved you were the bravest person I'd ever met. I was terrified. But you acted anyway. That's what bravery is. The feast continued late into the night. Music played, people danced, and somewhere in the crowd, Lyra heard someone telling a story about a blind girl who became a guardian, who turned darkness into power and forced an entire kingdom to see. It wasn't quite accurate, but it was close enough. 2 years later, Lyra stood on the western border, watching workers put finishing touches on the restored sanctuary. The second one, with plans for a third already in development. The kingdom had changed. Magic was no longer whispered about in fear. It was studied, regulated, integrated into defense strategies and agricultural improvements. Some people still hated her, but most had come to accept that the world was different now. Better, Lyra thought. Not perfect, but better. Kalen rode up beside her, dismounting with the easy grace of someone who'd spent his life on horseback. How does it look? Like hope, she said. Like people won't have to hide anymore. Your mother would be proud. The words hit deeper than he probably intended. Lyra still thought about her mother sometimes, about the sacrifice that had saved her life and stolen her sight, about the choice that had set everything in motion. I think she would too, Lyra said quietly. I think she'd look at all this and know her death meant something. Kalen's hand found hers. You meant something, still do, always will. They stood together, watching the sun set over the new sanctuary. Over the kingdom they were building together, flawed and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. Behind them, one of the new recruits called out, a question about channeling techniques. Lyra turned to answer, ready to teach, ready to protect, ready to be exactly who she'd chosen to become. Not a weapon, not a victim, not invisible, just Lyra Voss, guardian of Gravehold, the blind girl who'd learned to see what others couldn't, who'd turned her family's curse into the kingdom's shield, and who'd proven that sometimes the person everyone overlooks is exactly the person everyone needs. She squeezed Kalen's hand once, then headed back to work. There was always more to do, more people to help, more magic to channel into something beautiful instead of destructive. The legend had already spread across the kingdom, of the servant who became guardian, of the king who trusted her when no one else would, of the fortress that glowed with ancient power, protecting everyone who sought shelter within its walls. People would tell that story for generations, would debate whether it was true or exaggerated, would wonder if a blind girl really could sense danger before it struck. Lyra didn't care about the legend. She cared about the work, about the people depending on her, about the future she was building one careful choice at a time. And as night fell over Gravehold Keep, over her home, Lyra felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of purpose. The certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Protecting, teaching, building, living. And that, she thought as Kaylin's arm wrapped around her shoulders, as the keep's walls glowed softly with channeled magic, as everything she'd fought for settled into place. That was worth every sacrifice, every scar, every moment of darkness that had led her here. She'd survived. More than that, she'd thrived. And the kingdom would never be the same.